You're listening to Masters of Reinvention. I'm Angela Watson Robertson. My guest today is Dr. Carl Greer, who is talking with us about his recent book, Change the Story of Your Health, and how you can write a new story for your health and your life. So, Dr. Greer, in your books, you mentioned something you call expanded awareness practices that can help people gain insights and energies for healing. Can you talk with us a little bit more about one of those practices and how a person could use those to change his or her story, health story specifically?
By expanded awareness practices, I mean ways to access transpersonal realms. These are realms that are available to all of us. Some of us might think of them as the unconscious realms, so that we find ourselves a part of a larger world than we think that we normally are in. And shamans talk about journeying to those realms. They talk about a lower world journey where you get information from your past, say, an upper world journey where you can get information from your future, all to the goal of making changes in the present. So an example of such a journey would be go to the lower world to find out what energies from your past are influencing your current health story. And I have a journey in my book that takes people to a place where you can do that. What you need to give up from your past to have a different health story today. What you need to gain from your past that you might have lost. Similarly, there's an upper world journey that I have. Let's say you go out 10 years from now and you make no changes in the health story that you're living. How will you be? How will you be psychologically, physically, symptom-wise, and so forth? And then what changes might you make in order for that story to be different? What do you need to do differently? And if you were to do so, how would your health story look 10 years from now? So that's an example of a story, another of a journey. Another one is death, the energy of death. What in our lives needs to die in order for us to have a different health story? And you can work with that energy. Death is around us all the time. We consciously and unconsciously are killing things and bringing things to life. So if we can have a more conscious relationship to all these energies, I think we gain freedom of action to change better than had we not had these experiences.
Okay. Can you share an experience or situation where you, either personally or working with a client, have used some of these practices to affect your own health story and how it worked out for you?
One of the things about this kind of work, there's single study, single person studies. You don't have like big clinical trials. So even though you can have what seems like a miraculous thing, you never know for sure what caused what. But having said that, I mean, I've worked with people who have had tumors of a certain size, and they've done work around the meaning of that cancer, how it impacts their lives, and as a result of whatever work they've done in the presence of spirit, there's been changes in their physical health, including their cancers. Now, what causes what, I don't know, but people who have journeyed in many occasions have had physical positive effects. People who've had diabetes, they can learn to interact with the energy of their symptom and make life changes as a result of that. I've had people with fibromyalgia, interact in a dialoguing way, or gastrointestinal stuff. In my own case, I have prostate cancer. And so I do work around that, and who knows what's causing what, but as we speak, I'm still in a watching wait aspect of it, recognizing that things can change for reasons none of us can understand. I've had blockages in arteries, which I've had surgically, stents put in, but I've also done, this kind of work, and I've had blockages go away. Again, I don't know if it's change in diet, energy work, or whatever, but so I practice what I preach. I talk about everything is a teacher if you're open to it. Once I was out, before I knew I had prostate cancer, and I was out in a winter time. We were talking about, it's tougher to go out in the winter time, but sometimes it's an interesting time. And it was a moon was out, but there were a lot of clouds. So I was just kind of meditating on what's the meaning of all this, and what message do you have for me? And I was just saying, there's something there, but I can't see it. And the idea that a lot of times things are invisible, but they're present. How do we relate to the unseen? And so it gave me a sense of that. Shortly after that, I found out that I had this diagnosis. So it was present, but I didn't see it. Well, what's the meaning of those types of ideas? Things are present, you don't see it. In nature, journey work, working with our dreams can give us symbols and images that we can use to make changes in our conscious life.
Okay, thank you for sharing that about your personal journey. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about the journal exercises that you recommend your readers to try. And some of the journaling exercises had questions I thought were really interesting, like if there's a saying, a song, a book, or a movie title that expresses your story about this aspect of your health, what would it be? That type of thing. And we talked a little bit about, dancing your story and finding a song for your story. Another example that you put in your book were keep on keeping on, no matter the cost. I deserve it. I earned it. I'm eating it. This all sounds like fun, finding a song for your health, dancing your health. But can you tell us a little bit about why it might be very helpful to think of a song or a title of a song that kind of sums up somebody's, attitude and experiences of health?
Well, we talked earlier about sometimes the analytic mind has limitations. It may not see things. Whereas if you open it up to the lyrical mind, the poetic mind, the body movement, you may get an insight you didn't have. You may see that one of your themes that you never really realized is keep it on, keep it on. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm never going to rest. You may have another theme that's the opposite of that. It's not worth the struggle. I'm just going to kind of turn myself over to others to take care of me.
Yes.
And you may realize what that's been about. So it gives you an insight to your truth that you perhaps didn't have. You're still left with, what do I do about it? Now that I know this, what do I do about it? But you're better off, in my opinion, to have that insight. And by working in the way I'm describing, the way you're describing, that I do in my book, I think you have a better chance to get these insights as to what themes have been running you so far. And then you want a different theme to be there. When you're just moving your health story, you may all of a sudden get a sense of, hey, I'm kind of stiff. I'm kind of rigid in the way I'm doing it. I'm awkward. I'm self-conscious. Well, what other areas of my life am I stiff and awkward and self-conscious in? And what does that mean? Does that have any insight to me about my health story? Because that's a picture I'm getting of myself that I didn't have before.
Okay.
And how do I then be more fluid and graceful and more flow? And the idea of constriction, my own case, I grew up in Pittsburgh. My parents smoked. I'm sure that I had external images and energies of constriction, but also maybe my life, gets constricted with clutter and just stuff. And so how do I take these metaphors and work with them differently so that my health is affected more positively? That's the challenge. But
yeah.
I wouldn't even know what the question was until I did the work.
Yes. During the journaling exercises. Thank you for sharing that. So we're about out of time today, but before we go, Dr. Greer, can you share with our listeners one more time how they can get in touch with you and where your books are available?
Yes, thank you. At carlgreer.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. My books are available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, independent bookstores, and from my publisher, Finhorn Press.
Okay. Since this is Masters of Reinvention Radio, I do have one final question for you, as I'm the Reinvention Warrior. So my last question is, what is your Reinvention Warrior message or your final message for our listeners?
If you want to make changes in your health, take time to reflect on what is. And one simple thing, once you reflect on it, if you can do that in nature and spend time with nature, I would say those two things. Take time to reflect and then spend time in nature.
Well, I want to thank Dr. Carl Greer for being with me here today and for sharing his life-changing techniques for healing. And thank you, my dear listeners, for joining us today. Again, I'm Angela Watson Robertson. If you'd like to contact me, you can go to my website at angelawatsonrobertson.com. Please join me the first Tuesday of the month at noon Central Time for Masters of Reinvention, your ultimate guide to changing your life. Each month, I'll be interviewing masters in the art of life reinvention and giving you practical tools you can start applying today for a better life. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.